Coming here today to help officially launch our campaign. Merci beaucoup pour votre présence ici aujourd'hui, Tapwe Salamat. I am so honored and blessed by your faith in me, and I want to thank everyone who has been such a support, and especially my wife Catherine, who I think is in the back of the room there, because we're about to start a very long Red River Marathon. When a group of us decided to come together almost 2 years ago, we thought, how can we influence our city in a positive way? We had no idea of the reaction we would get. I'd been studying the city, the province, trying to understand the people here and how they feel about each other for many years, listening to over 300 people before I even considered involvement in politics, discussing the future they felt that Winnipeg, the province of Manitoba, and Canada must have. And what I found were good people with great values and ideas. We love Winnipeg. We love Manitoba and are proud of it, and we also should be proud of Manitoba. But everyone I knew felt that we lived in a divided city, and there was a deep concern about that divide in our city. We want to profoundly bridge that divide, and we are ready to extend a hand, but we do not know how to do that. And this is also an issue that is true in our political class. They can see the issues that are affecting us, the obstacles that are ahead, but they have no clear vision of the path that we need to take. We all know we need change, but not just the change for the sake of change. We need a new vision for what our city and our country can be. And that means challenging the politics, what it has become, where politicians only appeal to their core supporters and turn citizens against each other with fear and division, while continually ignoring the real issues. It's time for a new generation. It's time for a new way of thinking. And I'm advocating a return to the best traditions of what politics can be about. It means that we talk to our fellow citizens and not just taxpayers. It means we talk about the public interest and not just special interests. It means we debate politics and ideas and not attack people. Where instead of dividing and conquering, we can work in common cause, such as Shoal Lake. In politics, it can be all too easy for people to say, those people don't vote. So we don't have to worry about them. We can push them to the side, to be categoric, to label them. But it is too simplistic and does not serve us well. And Winnipeg is one of those ridings that has been taken for granted for far too long. We are a city where we have too many children who are unsafe and who are hungry. It is a riding that needs change, and men such as John Gerard have been fighting for that change for a very long time. It is a riding where if a vote for the incumbent, despite his many years, is still a vote for the status quo. Our movement, the movement that we started, has enjoyed support across the political spectrum, from left to right, from all parties during our mayoral campaign. And some people may now hesitate because they like to stay more independent, or they have their own partisan leanings. And I respect that everyone has different opinions. It should be something that we celebrate in democracy. But just as I believe that change in politics is possible, so too is change in political parties. The Liberal Party is a party that has often reinvented itself and has embraced renewal and reform and openness to new ideas, as well as a positive vision for our community. The Liberal tradition must make itself worthy every generation. But political parties, like any human institution, are defined by the people who join them. You, and you, and you, and you, and us. Some have asked why I would run in Winnipeg Centre. Why not in St. Boniface, so on the other side of the bridge? Why not in Transcona or Winnipeg South? If I was given any choice of any riding in the country, a safe seat or an unsafe seat, I would always choose Winnipeg Centre. This is the riding. Where I have worked for years in the Naval Reserves. It is the riding where, as a child, for a short period of time, my family was homeless. It is the homeland of my family who helped found the Red River, Assiniboia, and Manitoba. It is a riding that offers a mix of so much that is the best that Winnipeg has to offer. Our downtown, activism, education, business, and people who work hard every day to support their communities and their families and who are proud of it. And whether you live in Wolseley, in West End, in South Point, Douglas, the West End, the Exchange District, or even St. James, you are important. But it is also a riding which faces some serious challenges. These challenges represent to me the untapped potential of everything Winnipeg has to offer, especially its people. And some of those challenges are economic. We need to create more jobs and better jobs right here at Winnipeg Centre. And some of those challenges are environmental. We need to do more to fight climate change and tread more lightly upon the earth. Some of those challenges are the basic design of our neighborhoods, better roads, and a better public transportation system that works for everyone, right across this city. But in my opinion, the single greatest issue in this election for Winnipeg Centre and for Winnipeg and Manitoba is an issue that should transcend partisan politics. In May, I had the opportunity to attend the ceremony that marked the release of Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. With the audience, I listened to stories of survivors, and I heard the words of one man, an elder, who as a boy looked up to the stars at night, gazed up at those stars, and wondered if his parents were looking up at those stars, those same stars, and wondered, would anyone come to get him? My father, James, or Jim, or Jimmy, was a residential school survivor, as were his parents before him. And while the federal government has apologized for residential schools, they have not honored that apology. Now, incredibly, provincial governments, like Manitoba, are apologizing for the 60s scoop, when thousands of Aboriginal youth were adopted out across North America and even across the sea into Europe. And I have met individuals who have come home from Europe, from France, from Germany and England. When we talk about residential schools or the 60 scoops, both can sound like something from the distant past. It's something in the past. It allows us as a society to accept and recognize that a wrong was done, and we express regret. We're sorry. And yet, because these actions are in the past, we are still left wondering why Indigenous families in Canada are so often in crisis. We all recognize the importance of family, of love, of the bonds between parents and children, between grandparents and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles. But while the residential schools are gone and the 60 scoop has passed, for a century or more, governments have been pulling those bonds apart for Aboriginal families. And it is still happening today. It is still occurring right now. There are 11,000 children in the care of the state in child and family services in Manitoba right now at this instant. And that number has more than doubled in the last decade. And 10,000 of them are Aboriginal. On average, every single day for the last 9 years, CFS has apprehended a newborn child. 1/3 of all the wards of CFS never graduate from high school. 60% of the users of Salam Mission, one of the better homeless shelters in our city, were wards of the state. And there have been countless tragedies that have been the subject of major inquiries where we spend millions, such as the death of Phoenix Sinclair, Tina Fontaine, and many others. Many of the missing and murdered were at one time wards of Child and Family Services. There are more children in the care of CFS in Manitoba right now than at any time during the 60s scoop. There are more children in the care of CFS today in Manitoba than at any time during the residential school era. Ponder those statistics. Child and Family Services are the new residential schools of today, and the intentions may be different, but we are producing the very same result. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the premiers have all recognized what a serious issue this is, and they have called upon the federal government to step up. Of the 94 recommendations of the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the first 5 are dedicated to reducing the number of Aboriginal children in care. The very first 5. It is time for the federal government to assume their role to become responsible adults. And that, I think, you can all applaud. It is time for the federal government. Now, as you may know, I was sometimes homeless growing up in Calgary. My mother struggled with joblessness, with mental illness. We would camp in parks, like Memorial Park here in Winnipeg or Assiniboia Park. And I would go to school without lunch, and after school I would do a paper route in order to make a few bucks to buy some bread and milk to feed my family, and sometimes, perhaps if I'm lucky, to get a Slurpee. Slurpees are always good. And we traveled sometimes, including to Winnipeg, looking for better opportunities and work. It is a miracle that I was not taken into the care of Child and Family Services. So when I see someone, when I hear about a child who is in CFS, when I see a homeless person, I always think, but for the grace of God go I. And there is nothing easy about reducing the number of children in care. There is no one way to go about it. And while there are many people who want change, who want to see these children succeed, no one has been able to chart a path forward. But there is a path. It will take bringing together the federal government, the provinces, the cities, First Nations, and parents, and children, and grandparents, and CFS workers to work out the solutions, sitting down, discussing, talking about what we need, to chart a new course, to put a new focus on supporting families. To social workers, we can add family preservation workers. There are successful models here in Winnipeg where 70% of Aboriginal children eventually return to their families after years, sometimes being as wards of the state. But we know the most common reason for Aboriginal children to be taken into care is neglect, which is often due to poverty and the inability of parents to provide good living space, clothes, or food. And here in Manitoba, where they have doubled spending on jails and doubled spending on child and family services, the housing allowance for people on social assistance has been frozen for 23 years. 23 years. This is not abstract. This is not theoretical. I met a grandmother in Weston who was around 75 years old, and she was looking after her 4 very young grandchildren. She was trying to provide for those grandchildren on her old age security, her guaranteed income, and a very, very small Canada pension plan. The house she lived in. I have seen things like that in South Africa, in the slums of Soweto. You can find that when we send Canadian troops over to Afghanistan, or Haiti, or Nepal on humanitarian missions. It seems the system would prefer to take these kids, give them to someone else, give them the resources to raise those children, than to help this old lady who dearly loves her grandchildren. And CFS leads to many other issues in our society. A lack of love and attachment in a child does not lead to success later on in life. This can ruin cities. We need to support families. Economists have talked about many ideas about how to go about doing this. We need to learn from the past and implement a guaranteed income for all children, which is exactly what the Child Canada benefit provides. It's around $6,000 a year. It will lift 315,000 children across this nation out of poverty. This will be important in Winnipeg Centre because it is the poorest riding in our country. You are in the poorest riding right now in the country. And imagine what $6,000 would do for a family with a child, what it would do to a mother, to relieve the stress, to take away the strain of mental illness, to know that her children will not be adding more stress, but instead she will have the ability to say, I can perhaps do it. Perhaps I can go get an education and become a productive member of our society. We can also invest in affordable housing. We can invest in training and jobs, not just for young Aboriginal people, but for everyone, and ensure that young Aboriginal people have the same access to opportunity that everyone else does. We can introduce a Jordan's principle to CFS that puts the interests and safety of families first, before that of government-public relations. We know it's possible because there are success stories. CFS in Manitoba started to move towards the idea of family preservation, which has been successful in Yellowknife. There have been successes with Clout here in Winnipeg, a program that unites 70% of children with their families. But we need have no illusions. This is not an easy task. It will not be solved overnight. We also need to think about the way we think about each other. Too often, we look at someone who is suffering and say, that suffering, it's their fault. They should do more to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. And we can look at the way our city and our country have been divided and reflect upon us and them. And we may think of the challenges facing Indigenous Canadians as being only theirs to solve. As John Donne wrote, no man is an island entire of himself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. Any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind. In recognizing each other's fundamental dignity and humanity, we can also see that we are not so different. Like a family, we can and always will be different, but still be one people. And this issue is important for everyone. When I think of Dominique, a good middle-class soccer mom in the suburbs who is afraid of taking her children to the Health Sciences Centre Hospital because of the people she might encounter. She has been told countless times by politicians, by others, by journalists, that her and her child might be hurt, killed, or even worse. Are we not tired of living like that, with fear in our hearts? Are you not tired of living with fear in your hearts? I've also met young Aboriginal men like John, a good person who lives downtown, who wants to do right, but has never been told by anyone his entire life, I believe in you. Now, John is a big guy. He's taller than me. He's dark. He's been in prison. He's had addiction issues, but today he has a partner, children, and he's going to post-secondary school. But it seems that this is not enough. He asked me, Robert, why do the police always seem to want to stop me? Why does it seem that people are afraid of me when I walk down the street? John, if you're listening, if you're watching this video, I believe in you. I know you will succeed. You have an inherent goodness, and you are a great person, and you deserve the support of your family and everyone else in your community. Are we not collectively tired of being afraid of men like John, to have fear in our hearts? I will no longer have fear. I will no longer be afraid. I will make decisions based on intelligence and no longer listen to the fear-mongering that is far too easy in politics. The obligation we have to each other is deeper and higher than politics. It is a moral issue. It is an issue of social justice. The safety and nurturing of the next generation should always be our single greatest priority. I have often said that government can do many things, but it cannot love a child. It cannot legislate water to move uphill. We have a moral obligation to address and act on this problem now, so that we are not serving up another apology in 10, 20, or 40 years, so that we end the fear today. Instead, we should look back in 20 or 30 years' time and say, this was the turning point. Because this is just not their future as children and families that we are talking about. It is our future. It is our future as a community, as a city, as a province, and yes, our country as well. And this is what this campaign is about. It is about showing those children that there is a campaign, a movement of people like yourselves who have come out today on a cold day, who care profoundly for them and care deeply for them. When you, my friends, are on the phones, when you are at the doors, when you are talking to your friends, your neighbors, your co-workers, our message is that every single one of you matters. You count. Your vote counts. And you have the power to make real change happen in this election. You can make people take notice across this country. We all have value. We all have the right to be treated with dignity as a human being, and whether you are a CEO who works at Portage and Main, a stay-at-home mom looking after her kids, a postal worker pounding the pavement, a student at Red River, an artist in the Exchange, or a homeless person at Salam Mission. Every one of you has value. And it doesn't matter where you were born, who you worship, who you love. If you're willing to work hard, you can be part of building something great. And we all have a part to play as citizens who want to move our city forward. Each and every one of us. And I hope you will carry that in your hearts, not just today, but throughout the campaign. I hope you will bring this message to others, because you are very important in getting that message out about what we can accomplish. We will not fail in our collective leadership. Together, we will bring real change to Winnipeg Centre and Winnipeg, and start something for our nation. So God bless Winnipeg. May the Great Spirit guide us all and bless our children. Merci beaucoup. Sapwe.